Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and with 3.5 being in public PTU now, I wanted to go ahead and show off a few different things, starting with the new Reliant variants. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the Mako, which if you recall is the news van variant that kind of comes with this camera mount on the wingtip for recording and collecting footage. Now, this is the one that I thought was mostly going to be a gimmick, something to kind of help facilitate content creation or fan footage. And while I still think that's mostly the case, it seems like I don't know, based on the way the Reliant Sin was implemented too, it could be used in things like missions, almost in like a scanning capacity to where you go out, you gather footage, you return, and you sell that, which it would be essentially like data, and then you profit off of that. Now, regardless, we're a long way from that, so let's just look at the ship itself. The Mako comes with kind of a yellowish skin, mostly present on the wingtips in the front of the cockpit. Now, all of the Reliants share the same cockpit, which is where it stands currently. You basically, and this is just kind of an FYI, you need to be able to be in the horizontal formation to make sure that you can actually get out of the seat, which makes a lot of sense considering you fly in an over-under type of formation. But if you're not familiar, you could end up getting, or at least thinking that you're kind of stuck in the cockpit. So if you can't get out of the ship, just hit the landing gear and then you can probably get out. Now, as far as the interior of the ship is concerned, they all share some similar traits, like having 2 bunks, a toilet, 2 seats in the cockpit. Now, things get a little bit different from there, though, when you start talking about the variants. And on the Mako, you have what I would say is basically the best engineering station that I've seen yet in the back of the ship. And that's probably because this is going to end up being used for editing and collecting footage at some point. But it almost looks like a kind of like an ultra-wide monitor setup with a lot of space for MFD options, and it really does a good job of making use of the space in the back of the ship. Now, in the passenger seat, or the co-pilot seat, you have the option to enter a remote turret, which then ends up acting like the 600 eyes remote turret, but there is no weapon. You don't quite get a full 360-degree view of everything, but what you're doing is you're remoting into the camera mount, and that does allow you to rotate around significantly and see the world through that lens. So you can almost start to see how the co-pilot's going to end up acting as the cameraman while the pilot flies and keeps that shot available to that person. Now, when we move over to the Reliant Sin, which is the research variant, it shares the same things already mentioned, though it has a different research station in the rear, which basically has a much smaller screen that faces forwards instead of sideways. Now, in the passenger seat, you have the option to enter a remote turret like the Mako, and currently the experience is basically the same where it acts like a camera. Now, my guess is that here in the future, you're going to end up basically still having like that camera to help you kind of orient the scanning suite, which you can see ends up having some of the wings or foils around it to help with, like, I guess, receiving signals. But I think what you're going to get in the future is some sort of visual cue that kind of points you in the right direction as to what the purpose of that ship is. So, for example, I think with the Mako, you're probably going to end up having some like recording notifications or magnification options. And then on the Sin, you probably end up with something like sensor readouts or kind of just results from your scanning. The last new variant is the Tana, or the Tana. That's the combat variant. This one actually lacks the rear seat area, but does come with some extra weapons on the wings, and instead of that seat station in the rear, you actually have weapons racks for FPS combat weapons. The Sin and the Mako both have 2 size 2 weapons, which is going to be that M4A laser cannon, but the Tana actually brings along 2 size 3 M5A laser cannons as well. Now, that isn't a super robust combat loadout, but for a semi-starter ship, it's really not that bad when you also pair it with the 16 size 2 missiles that it also brings along, which are stored inside the wing itself. Now, the co-pilot doesn't really get much of a job in this ship, so there is no real weapon control, so I think your co-pilot in the TAN is really going to be mostly an engineer or a scanning type of job until the ship actually lands and you're ready for non-ship combat. Overall, I think there's been some really good progress on getting some more ships through the pipeline, so I think we can see some cool gameplay coming down the pike with these new variants. If you guys have questions on any of this, please let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for a whole lot more coming soon. 3.5 is live, so there will be a lot to cover. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.